All right. So let's get to it. Thank you for joining our webinar today. Really appreciate you taking the time to come out to today's training. I know it's getting prettier outside, so it's nice to see all y'all. My name is Heidi Reese, and I am the Training Programs Manager here at Dayton Superior. Just want to run through a couple of items, one of which we just talked through with the whole muting. So most of you are muted on the phone, but don't let that stop you from asking any questions, and you can do that through the chat functionality in Zoom. Just ask any questions, and then we'll answer them for you. At the end of the presentation, we will definitely have a mini question and answer session, so you can ask those questions during or at the end. And as a reminder, each of our webinars are recorded and placed on the Dayton Superior YouTube channel, as well as the DaytonSuperior.com website. Simply search Training Tuesdays. You'll find two links when you do that through the search. One is to sign up for the next one, and the second one is to see all of the past Training Tuesdays. Okay, so just to let you know, this presentation is for training purposes only. Anything that we're going to be going over, you can go to www.daytonsuperior.com and get technical information, safety information, all kinds of information out there. This is just an overview for the polymer floor coatings. So who is Dayton Superior? Those of you on the call, you probably know, but let's just hit it real high level. We're the leading provider of engineered solutions for the concrete construction industry, whether it be for new concrete or existing concrete. We specialize in accessories, chemicals, forming, engineering services, and of course training, as you're listening to today. We also can come out and do full customized trainings for your organization. These are intended for, Training Tuesdays are intended for quick overviews and highlights, and then we can do a deeper dive if you feel like you need that. So moving along, today's topics, we will be discussing polymer floor coatings, as I said, and with us today to do the presentation is Matthew Carter, who is our Technical Service Manager. Matthew has been in the construction industry for over 20 years, on-site as well as at the dealer-distributor level, and has fulfilled additional roles that include sales, managing a form rental yard, and rebar shop. He's also done operations management, and in 2012, he joined Dayton Superior's technical service team supporting the chemical division. And he has been very integral in helping customers with their technical product and project questions, specification questions, as well as leading numerous training initiatives throughout the company. So Matthew, go ahead and teach us about floor coatings.
Oh, Heidi, thank you for the introduction. Yeah, today we're going to talk a little bit about polymer floor coatings. You can kind of see we're going to do a quick overview, considerations, application styles, a few different types of polymer floor coatings, and what products we have to offer. To be honest, we're going to probably focus a little bit more on the epoxy and urethanes. We will touch on the other chemistries that are out there. But again, this is a very, very high-level overview. There's a lot of information that kind of runs with this, and while I'm known for talking a little bit long, I got to keep it short. So a quick overview, right? Polymer floor coatings, you know, epoxy coatings, polyaspartics, polyureas, coatings like that have been around for quite a while now. You know, they say early 20th century. The nice thing about them is they provide a great, durable, moisture-resistant, impact-resistant flooring that seals off your concrete and keeps things. In other Training Tuesdays and other applications, we've talked about densifiers, water repellents, acrylic sealers, other options for sealing your concrete. And this is another unique way to seal your concrete. As opposed to a water repellent or densifier, this is a physical barrier sitting on top of your concrete. Unlike acrylics, these are not breathable, but they're also a thicker build, and they're going to be more highly engineered, and they're going to have a longer lasting finish to them. So unlike an acrylic where you have to maybe readdress it or reapply it or maintain it every 2-3 years, you're looking at an epoxy coating that's going to be durable, long-lasting. You're going to get years, if not decades, out of use out of it, along with it being chemically resistant, being able to put up with a lot of wear, tear, and abuse to the system you go with. We say using garage floors, industrial warehouses. I mean, that's very limited scope. I mean, that's there, but you also have schools, institutions, industrial, manufacturing, processing plants, a lot of other fun places. So what type of floor coating do I need? I mean, there's a lot of considerations to look at when we are looking at the different chemistries and the different ways of coating your floor, right? Is there any underlying damage to your floor? And that's always a fun one, right? Is it a nice smooth finish? Is it beaten up? Is it already seen some attack and some issues? Uh, and a couple considerations for that is, I took a tour of a warehouse not too long ago, and at the battery forklift station, there was a lot of corrosion on the floor. And could it have been from long-term storage of batteries and the maintenance of the forklifts? You had a lot of attack, a lot of spalling, a lot of issues there. That would be a really good candidate for a polymer coating, a protection there. In addition, you wouldn't necessarily think of it, but breweries, right? That's another one you walk into, and they were having some issues with overflow or packaging places, and wineries, breweries, alcoholic, slightly acidic. And it was slowly eating away, eroding the floor. You had this really, kind of textured floor, and they would have also benefited from it. They had some other methods down to protect it, but it just wasn't solving their problems long term. So it's always good to, understand what's going on, if there's anything underlying going on. Heat resistance, different products, different chemistries handle heat differently, but aesthetics, right? There's a lot we can do with an epoxy or a polymer, whether it be the color of the product itself or with the aggregate or anything that's broadcast into it. So you can do a lot of fun decorative items, but you could also do a lot of informational items. You'll see some examples of that as well. Health and safety, bacteria, go back to hospitals or processing plants, right? We want something that we can clean and know that there's nothing there once we're done cleaning it, right? You don't want anything porous. You want to be able to wash it down, use bleacher cleaners or whatever you need to do to make sure you've got a clean working environment. And then traffic, right? Am I a basement garage, a residential garage that I'm just walking through? Am I a warehouse? Am I a manufacturing plant? Am I dragging stuff across it? So the traffic and abuse it's going to take is always a consideration. And then moisture levels. We'll look at that here in a minute. Because polymer floor coatings are vapor barriers. Think of it as putting like a high-end, non-breathable plastic down over your concrete, right? It is great for protecting your concrete, right? That's what it's there for. It's going to keep anything from getting down into it. Firstly, it's not going to let anything come up through it either, and that could lead into some problems if you've got what's called a high moisture drive. So there's moisture vapor emission rates out of your concrete, especially if there's slab on grade, which just says, hey, I've got moisture naturally occurring in the ground, and it's going to work my way up through maybe a gravel fill, or if you don't have a capillary break, it's going to get into the concrete and it's worked its way up. Um, Slab on grade is probably the worst one for this. Brand new concrete, you got to let the moisture come up and out of it first before you go sealing it off. What can happen is, and you'll see some examples of some papers on the left-hand side, you can get osmotic effects, you can get a lot of deposits, you can get moisture drive so high that it's going to blister, spall, or scale your coating. And you don't want to spend a whole lot of money on a really nice flooring option for it to just peel off, rupture, or blister. So how do you figure out what you have? There's a lot of really nice tests out there. It's always nice to know if you've got a vapor barrier under your concrete. So that would definitely go a long way. Otherwise, you can do a concrete moisture test. And there's industry organizations such as International Concrete Repair Institute that has a whole program built around it, the Concrete Slab Moisture Testing Program. More considerations, always check with your application what the literature says about it, right? All the different coatings are going to have literature behind them. You want to make sure it's UV stable. Not all epoxies are UV resistant. This is a good case of it. You can see kind of the middle and the right, almost a line where a mat was down, and there is a difference between the overhead lighting, which in this case was a very high UV output, versus a protected area. Or even on the left side, you can see where it was kind of shaded by the edge of the cabinet. So just a consideration, if I am an auto dealership, for instance, and I have a lot of very large plate glass windows, I would want to make sure whatever coating I'm going to put down is going to be UV resistant. That way I don't have any considerations down the road or any issues. So polymer coatings, right? There's a lot of different ways you can apply them, and often going to depend on the type of chemistry you're using. Epoxy, there are epoxy mortars and urethane mortars that can be made. Um, and in this case, it's, hey, I've got an uneven floor, I've got damaged floor, I want to pre-treat it before I put a coating down. You can mix it, 3, 4 parts clean, dry silica sand or specialty aggregate. I can mix that into 1 part epoxy, come up with a stiffer mortar, and use that as a trowelable repair with some products, right? And that's a great way to fix any existing problems before I go top coating over it. You've got slurries to kind of skip down to the bottom. They're kind of splitting the difference between a mortar and a coating, where I want a thicker build. I want something texture granular. That way it's slip resistant. You could go ahead and mix in a filler of some sort. A lot of times it'd be like a clean silica sand or a aggregate of some sort. Mix it in, squeegee it down or pull it down, and then you've got a non-slip surface kind of built into it that's pre-coated. Then you've got your regular coatings. That's pretty much roll it on, nice thin application, roll it or squeegee it. And then you've got walls, floors, and ceilings, right? So as we're talking about processing centers, floors, things like that, oftentimes they'll kind of cove up the wall like you see in that second picture down, where they'll go up a few inches. That way, if you do have water on the floor, it's not finding that joint right there between the floor and the wall. You got some protection. You'll also see that in like secondary containment areas where you're coating the wall or coating up a good bit. That way, if anything gets down on the floor, it's not going to seep through walls or anything like that. Processing plants will often go up several feet high. That way they can just power wash it down and knock everything. To touch on the chemistries just a little bit, there's a lot of other options out there. Polyaspartics, very quick, very dry, good choice. Good choice for general applications. Polyureas are very unique products, very nice products. You often see them being spray applied with plural component applicators. They are extremely fast at what they do, and it usually takes specialized equipment. You got MMAs or methyl methacrylates. They're good for thermal duress, thermal stresses, and they dry pretty quickly. What I'm going to focus on a little bit more is the epoxies and urethanes. Urethanes are often called polyurethanes as well. Flexible, economical, high impact, scratch resistant. You'll see them on bridge deck overlays. They're often UV stable, but not always. So again, refer back to manufacturer's literature on that. And then epoxies, you can do a lot with that chemistry, right? There's a lot of versatile, flexible choices you can do. There's water-based formulations, 100% epoxy formulations. There's a lot of different blends that you can do different things with. There's Novolac epoxies, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But a Novolac is a very, very high chemical resistance where you're getting a chemical reaction, but in this case, it's a highly cross-linked polymerization of that product, and it makes it extremely chemical resistant. Then you can even do static dissipating floor systems with epoxy. You'll see that in like server rooms or things like that, where you have to make sure static is non-existent, especially for computer systems or delicate electric systems. Down here, we've got just a quick example of a urethane epoxy system. It was a fire station, and it's just little thumbnail pictures, but kind of tells a story of, hey, fire station, we had concrete. They wanted something that was going to be very easy to clean, very easy to spray down, shed water, move it along. So they put down an epoxy base coat. They broadcast an aggregate into it, and then they top coated it with a clear high gloss epoxy. So the benefit is I've got an epoxy, I've got a aggregate on top of it, so I've got really good traction, really good variation. That way I can, better walkability. And then I'm going to top coat that in with a high gloss sealer. I'm going to make it really, really tight. That way, as you see in that far right picture, you still got the texture there, but the aggregate's locked in. There's no aggregate bridging. That way it can work its way through that epoxy. and it's going to shed water extremely well because I've got that good top coat on there. Water's going to come right off of it. I can squeegee it down, I can blow it off. Going back to aggregate's pretty cool stuff that you can modify your epoxy coating with in many cases. You can add traction, aesthetics, durability to the system. You'll see that's a parking garage there. You can use everything from colored quartz, recycled glass, things like that, and it does a really good job delineating or demarcating, special areas. Hey, here's a blue section. That way, you're not parking right beside it for like maybe a handicap or assisted stalls. There's green for pedestrian walkways. So it's a very nice way to couple a colored aggregate in addition to a colored epoxy to really have a permanent marking system. And so, hey, I don't want anything that aggressive. I don't want really granular. Well, you can definitely add a little bit of traction, a little bit of variation to that smooth texture by using paint flakes. This is a red with just some variation thrown into it, but paint flakes come into a lot of colors, a lot of sizes. You would broadcast those into damp epoxy, or sorry, tacky epoxy. They bond in, and then you just go right back over it with a high gloss system on top of it, or a clear system on top of it to lock that in, and that way it keeps it in place while adding that texture. And here is what Dayton Spirit can offer. We have a whole polymer floor coating line. It's called Spec Coat, and we've got the different ones, Spec Coat water-based all the way down to urethanes. What's really cool about this slide is look at the color chart on the right-hand side. You've got everything from light blue, true blue, more green. I like the earth tones, and then you've got light, medium, dark gray, and you can couple that in with a safety color. One note I'll say is that there are some specs floating around that couple the safety yellow or red as a primer, and then you top coat that with a medium gray or dark gray. That way, if I'm in a containment area, a high wear area, maintenance area that sees a lot of wear, tear, and abrasion, if I have a chemical attack or an abrasion to the point that I'm wearing through my standard top coat, well, I'm going to start seeing my safety color up underneath there. So it's just one more benefit, and there's a lot of really fun options you can do. You can also go through and make things very aesthetic, very pleasing, very fun. Start off with the Spec Coat water base. It is probably one of the most popular of the polymer coatings that we carry. It is a water-based product. It's very easy to use. It's a 4-to-1 mix ratio, high gloss. It can be used as a standalone polymer coating, right? 2 coats, you're good. You can even do a 3-coat system. But the Spec Coat water base is also used as a primer for the other ones. Again, it's a very compatible, very easy system, and it goes very well with the concrete. Acts as a great primer for the Spec Coat 100. Kind of as the name would say, Spec Coat 100, it's a 100% epoxy system. It's got very good moderate chemical resistance. Multiple colors that you just saw are available. And if you want that clear top coat, we have a separate one called Spec Coat 100 Clear, because oftentimes if you played with epoxy, your A or B side has some type of color or pigment in it. So to get it clear, you have to have a little bit of a tweak to the formulation, and that's what you got here. And then 2 of the other really fun ones, mentioned that we had a Novalac Spec Coat 100 CR chemical resistant. I would say this one has the highest, most severe chemical resistance of the products that we have. Very, very good product. Got a lot of unique applications, everything from manufacturing locations to labs. Very good product. And then the Spec Coat urethane. Again, it's got very good chemical resistance. It's better than your typical, the Spec Coat 100 typical epoxy. But its claim to fame here is it's going to be UV resistant. So you'll often see this one outside coating like secondary containment systems or tank farms or applications like that. Talked about them, we looked at them. I'm just going to go real quick into their application prep install. On the right-hand side, you can see kind of like a basic, sales sample where we had concrete, we repaired a joint, we had that joint cut back and we filled it up. What you'll often find is you don't fill a joint all the way to the bottom, but again, it's just a sample. But what you do is I've got a clean, bare concrete floor. I'm going to make sure I have the correct amount of moisture in it, right? Oftentimes your literature will tell you how much moisture is acceptable or not acceptable. So I'm going to do the moisture testing, right? I'm going to make sure I'm acceptable to put an epoxy impermeable coating on top of it. And then I'm going to prep the floor, right? A lot of these are going to require some type of texture out of that floor to be able to bond better to it. That process also does a good job of getting rid of any poorly bonded latents, contamination, or anything else. So often, floor grinding is called for. In more aggressive cases, shot blasting, where you're literally shooting BBs at the floor and they rebound up and you're continuously blasting it down. We're going to fill our control joints as appropriate. So you want to fill your control joint, that way your joint is still able to move and do what it needs to, and it's not filling up with all of your very nice polymer floor coating. And then any cracks that you have, any existing cracks or movement, you either need to fill them or inject them or treat them. Because if you don't, you can get reflection up through them. Number one, if you don't fill them often your primer coat, you'll see them kind of highlight back in. But if you have a moving crack, well, you either need to inject it or address it. That way you don't have future concerns going down the line. Here's the priming of it. So in this case, we've got the clean, bare concrete. You've got your joints that have been filled. You've got any cracks or anything else that have been addressed. And then they're going back over it with the primer, the Spec Coat WB. Again, nice roll down squeegee application. And then they're going back over it with the intermediate coat, and they chose a Spec Coat 100. So in this case, you can match the two colors, kind of like if I'm painting a wall, I often like to use the same color over itself, especially if it's a lighter color. That way you kind of get a truer color, it doesn't shadow in as much. And then they're broadcasting flakes into it, right? So very easy, very straightforward broadcast system. And then they're going to tight roll down over a clear coating. In this case, it was a Spec Coat urethane because this was going to be a lab and, incidental splash spill of chemicals. You just want to make sure you've got the best protection down. Pretty straightforward, nothing too crazy, and you end up with a very attractive floor that's going to be good for decades in this application. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not an acrylic where you have to reapply. It's not going to be like a densified floor where you always have to worry about, am I going to get a chemical on that floor that's going to affect the concrete? A few other applications, just to kind of give you a quick overview. Here's an industrial project. You've got a tank farm. They're doing some packaging there. Again, incidental splash spill. They've got the Spec Coat CR as a protected area. That way they can clean up anything without it getting onto the bare concrete that you see on the bottom portion of that picture. Standard warehouse floor, Spec Coat 100. Nothing too crazy going on here. They've just got it coated out. Going back to institutional projects, right? Schools use it, hospitals use it. In this case, it's more of like a jail or prison. You want to keep those floors clean, sanitary, easy to maintain. You can use aggressive cleaning methods here if you wanted to, or aggressive cleaning solutions, and you're fine, right? You're not going to affect the floor or any other painted coating on there. Really nice picture of a manufacturing location. Again, you've got clear demarcation of, hey, this is where the work is going to happen. We've got secondary containment if anything down off of it into that little trough area. And then we've got a nice white surround where it's safe to walk and be. And then finally, just kind of looks like a garage type conversion where they're like, hey, we've got a nice, basement conversion where they want to change it into like maybe an office or residential, more of residential use where they have a little workout equipment, whatever. It can be used in that type of application. Again, very, very high level, quick conversation on these products. If you want more information, go to DaytonSuperior.com. We have a lot of really good information out there. We have specification services. We've got technical data sheets, guide specs, chemical reference, and then we've got the really awesome picture here. So if you're like, man, what do I want to use? You can refer back to that chart, get an idea of what you're looking for the area that you're in, and then you always look for mock-ups or samples. And you can do that by talking to your technical sales rep. And again, on DaytonSuperior.com, we have a chemical resistance chart. So, hey, I've got a known chemical in a known area that I need to protect from. You can use this chart, go down, take a look at it, and say, hey, I've got this product, and I want to make sure I'm protected from it for short-term exposure, long-term exposure. And you'll get a good idea of what it's good for. The technical data sheet that you see in the middle is good for the application, mixing, placement, and any potential limitations that are there. And then you got your safety data sheet for being on hand and for submittal. And then finally, who to call when you need answers. You can definitely call technical services. That's me. Either myself or my colleague will be more than glad to take your call and answer any questions that you have. Otherwise, you can go here. These regional maps are very, very nice. So whether you're in the Northeast, South, Central, or West Coast, you can see who's in your area. We have specialty reps that can help take care of any questions that you have, visit job sites, and help support. Kind of leads into this one, right? Technical services, that's myself. Bottom left-hand corner, that's me. I'm on a job site at the bottom central center picture. We have a dedicated technical sales team, and that includes precast, splicing, tilt-up, and in my case, chemical technical sales, where if you have a question, issue, they'll be more than glad to take care of you. They can show up on site and assist you in the field. Real-time problem solving, we're available online. We're available over the phone, email. Let us know how we can help. As Heidi mentioned, we can do custom training. And we have a very nice online platform. So if you ever need to know, hey, I've got a DOT question, you can go onto our website, look at DOT approvals, and see what products are approved in your state. With that, that is my portion completed. I would hand this back over to Heidi for any additional questions.
Yeah, thanks, Matthew. Great job. So, guys, if you have any questions, go ahead and put those into the chat functionality. And just a reminder that we do record these, so if you wanted to rewatch it, we'll have it posted today or tomorrow morning for you, and email will go out and let you know it's out there. And you can see those as well as all of the other Training Tuesdays out on the DaytonSuperior.com YouTube channel and DaytonSuperior.com. So give you a chance to put any questions in if you have them. So a little plug for the upcoming Training Tuesdays. Next month is April, and we're going to be doing a bridge deck series with Chuck Hoke. So we will have 4 weeks of different types of bridge deck. So if that's exciting to you, please go ahead and sign up for that. And I don't see any questions, so if there's no questions, we will end for today, and I appreciate all of you taking the time. And Matthew, thank you for presenting. And everyone have a happy Tuesday. See you next week.